Finance Committee meets this morning to discuss important nominations for President Biden's trade team. First, Maurice Lago is nominated to serve as Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade. This role is all about being the point person for trade policy at the Commerce Department, heading up the International Trade Administration. It deals with enforcing our trade laws to protect American jobs, breaking down barriers to American-made exports, and getting small and medium-sized businesses into the trade policy winner's circle. It's a wide-ranging job, but that's why President Biden has nominated an individual with a vast array of experience in many different leadership roles. Ms. Lago served during the Obama administration as Assistant Secretary for International Markets and Development at Treasury. She previously led the Office of International Affairs for the Securities and Exchange Commission. She was a top economic development official for New York State and the city of Boston. Most recently, she served as the director of the New York City Department of City Planning and chair of the City Planning Commission. I'm confident in her experience, I'm confident in her ability, and she's going to be leading a big economic team, and there's certainly some big economic challenges. Next, Lisa Wong is nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Enforcement and Compliance. This role is about using some of our strongest tools for protecting American jobs and businesses against trade ripoffs. That includes investigating and addressing dumping by foreign companies and unfair government subsidies. The Enforcement and Compliance Office also works closely with USTR on key trade enforcement issues. Ms. Wong previously served as a senior attorney in the Office of the Chief Counsel for Trade Enforcement and Compliance at the Commerce Department. She also served as Assistant General Counsel in the Office of the U.S. Trade Rep and has experience in private practice. The bottom line is she's a specialist in the areas of trade law dealing with enforcement and compliance, and she's the right person for the right job. This committee takes a special interest in what I call trade done right. It's about fighting for American jobs and workers and businesses and farmers and ranchers by strongly enforcing trade laws and creating new opportunities to sell American-made goods and services across the world. It's as if there are two sides of one coin. You want to have tough enforcement to protect American jobs and ensure we get a fair shake, and then you want to go out and create new opportunities for us to add value to products and then ship them, particularly Oregon products, all over the world. Ms. Lago and Ms. Wong will be excellent additions to the team. I want to congratulate them on their nominations and looking forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wyden. Welcome, Ms. Lago and Ms. Wong. And congratulations on your nominations. If confirmed, the nominees before us will have key roles in overseeing and operating the Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration, or ITA. ITA plays an important role in promoting market access and redressing unfair trade practices. Both functions are critical to American prosperity. For example, Hamilton Manufacturing in Twin Falls, Idaho, successfully utilized ITA's export promotion services to locate new partners in Chile. There are many other companies in Idaho and across the country that can benefit from such assistance. Ms. Lago, I look forward to hearing your views today on how ITA can expand export opportunities for America's farmers, businesses, and workers. In terms of unfair trade practices, our industries have to be able to compete on a level playing field, including by having recourse to relief under our anti-dumping and countervailing laws when appropriate. This is particularly important right now when China is spending record sums on industrial subsidies. Ms. Wong, I hope you will share your insights on how ITA can administer the trade remedy laws effectively. I remind both nominees that ITA's success in its mission is contingent on a strong partnership with Congress. This is true not just because Congress has authority over trade policy under our Constitution, but because members are in the best position to understand the needs of our constituents. I hope the nominees today will confirm that they would closely consult with this committee if confirmed. I look forward to hearing the nominees' testimony and their responses to our questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Crapo. We'll hear from Ms. Lago, and then we'll hear from Ms. Wang. We've got then some procedural requirements. But let's go forward with Ms. Lago, who's on the web. Ms. Wong will then go next. And Ms. Lago, you're out in cyberspace, I believe, somewhere. And we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Chairman Wyden and Ranking Member Crapo and members of the Senate Finance Committee. Thank you for welcoming me here and for allowing me to testify virtually. It is a tremendous privilege to be considered by this committee as the nominee for Undersecretary for International Trade at the Department of Commerce. Considering the achievements of those who have served in this position in prior administrations, it's humbling to be here today. It is increasingly important that our nation remain the global leader on trade, especially as we look to a post-pandemic world. If confirmed, I will treat the role of leading ITA with the significance that it deserves. Before I discuss my priorities, I would like to take a brief moment to recognize three major influences in my life. First, my partner of 47 years, my beloved architect husband, Ronald Finyu. Ron is the son of Ukrainian parents who our country welcomed as displaced persons after World War II. Ron and I met at Cooper Union, which provided each of us with a tuition-free education, for which we are eternally grateful. I am also grateful to Congress for the work-study program, which allowed me to earn the funds that I needed to support myself while in college. Second, my mother, Marushinha Pita Sauto, a Spanish immigrant and a proud American who raised me bilingually and who passed along her rock-solid ethical core. And finally, my late father, Luis Lago, child of Spanish immigrants and a World War II Navy veteran. My parents instilled in me a lifelong love of learning, bursting with pride when I became my family's first college graduate. My father's career as a 30-plus year civilian employee of the Department of Defense set a powerful example for his children. My brother Paul Lago has spent his entire career as a federal civil servant, also at DOD. And my dad's lessons have shaped my career in federal, state, and municipal government, a career that has focused on supporting jobs for the American people, stable, well-paying jobs that support families and communities. Throughout my time in government, I have seen the power of trade and investment to improve lives. During my 7 years at Treasury, I worked with the World Bank and its regional counterparts to increase women's access to capital, allowing them to build businesses and support both their families and their communities. I came to see firsthand that over the longer term, these investments create export opportunities for US businesses of all sizes, which in turn create more jobs for US workers. Similarly, when I was president and CEO of New York State's Economic Development Arm, I saw the multifaceted benefits of the investments that we made. I helped revitalize the decaying, formerly industrial Brooklyn waterfront, where my grandfather had worked as a cook on a tugboat. Some of you may have personally enjoyed the result of this initiative, Brooklyn Bridge Park, which has grown into a major recreational hub, as well as a national and international tourist draw, contributing significantly to the vibrancy, the livability, and the economic health of my hometown and of our nation. Of course, ITA not only supports US businesses and exporters, it plays an essential role in ensuring that our trading partners are abiding by the rules of the road. My prior service heading international affairs at the US Securities and Exchange Commission, a formidable enforcement agency, gives me a deep-seated appreciation of the importance of ensuring that other nations comply with our trade agreements. And when they do not, deploying our robust enforcement tools on behalf of American workers and businesses. When competing on a level playing field, US businesses and workers can successfully innovate and succeed. And their success bolsters American competitiveness, our economic and national security, and the lives of the American people. If I have the honor of being confirmed, I look forward to being a committed partner to this committee and Congress in general, as well as a passionate, tireless advocate for the people of the United States. I look forward to any questions that you may have of me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Ms. Wong in person. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Wyden, Ranking Member Crapo, members of the committee. I am humbled and honored to be here today as President Biden's nominee to serve as Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Enforcement and Compliance. I am grateful that the administration has entrusted me with this position, and I'm thankful for the support that Secretary Raimondo and her team have shown me. I would like to begin by thanking my father, Frank Xiaohang Wong. He came to the United States in his early 30s, knowing almost no English, but believing deeply in the American dream. He believed that America is a country where hard work would lead to success. He believed that America is a place where fairness matters. It was through his sheer determination and endless optimism that our family rose from near poverty to a cozy life in the suburbs of East Greenbush, New York. My father passed away a few years ago, but would have been so delighted to see me here today, taking pictures and trying to shake your hand. There'll never be a better cheerleader, and I would be remiss to not acknowledge him here. I would also like to thank my mother, Tina Kongying Wong, who worked a lifetime of minimum wage jobs to afford me the opportunity to be before you today. She has lived her life for her family's health and happiness, and I am proud to have her watching today. There is a straight line from my parents' sacrifices to my success, and I remain forever thankful for their support and guidance. I also want to thank my husband, Tim Kovacs, and my 2 daughters for their encouragement and support. Thank you for always pushing me to take risks and finding the joy in life. I came to the United States when I was 5 years old, not knowing any English, believing deeply in my father's American dream. This belief is what led me to a career in international trade. I believe that the hard work of American workers and American businesses should not be undercut by unfair trade practices. I've spent my career representing U.S. industries seeking a level playing field against unfair subsidization and dumping. In doing so, I've seen manufacturers go from the brink of closure to capacity expansions because of effective trade enforcement. When our foreign competitors play by the same rules, when trade is fair, no one can beat the American worker. As an attorney with the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, I defended the United States in WTO cases seeking to overturn our U.S. CVD laws and to weaken our trade enforcement objectives. I have led WTO cases against countries like China to stop their use of industrial policies that target U.S. and other export markets. The highlight of my career, however, has to be the many years that I spent working within Commerce's enforcement and compliance. E&C has a dedicated team of public servants who work to ensure that our U.S. trade laws are rigorously enforced. As foreign governments and foreign competitors become more sophisticated in their use of industrial subsidies and other unfair trade practices, we must work harder and smarter to counter these practices. If confirmed, I look forward to working closely with you to ensure that our U.S. trade remedy laws are transparently and vigorously enforced. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wong. We've got some obligatory questions that we're going to ask of you and your colleague, Ms. Lago, now. And I'll start with, first, is there anything that you're aware of in your background that might present a conflict of interest with the duties of the office to which you've been nominated?
No.
No.
Okay. Second, do you know of any reason, personal or otherwise, that would in any way prevent you from fully and honorably discharging the responsibilities of the office to which you've been nominated?
No.
No.
Third, do you agree without reservation to respond to any reasonable summons to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of the Congress if you are confirmed?
Yes.
Yes.
Finally, do you commit to provide a prompt response in writing to any questions addressed to you by any senator or the committee?
Yes.
Yes, Chairman.
Very good. All right, let's start And I'll begin with some questions for you, Ms. Lago, on supply chain disruptions. Obviously, this is an enormously important challenge. I just spent a week getting all over the state of Oregon, virtually every nook and cranny in the state, and I just heard constantly about the challenges of increased demand, port congestion, disrupting so much in the way of the movement of everyday consumer goods. Now, in my home state, where growing, making, and shipping products for exports is a priority, we have 1 out of 4 jobs revolving around trade. The trade jobs often pay better than do the non-trade jobs. Supply chain disruptions have made it more difficult to get Oregon blueberries and apples and other products to markets around the globe. So there is much to do, and let me just start with kind of the first two kind of judgments here. First, the United States needs to make major investments in U.S. essential manufacturing. This would, for example, include the FABS Act, the important bipartisan legislation. I want to thank Senator Crapo. He and I worked very closely on it, but up and down this dais, you would see Democrats and Republicans who understand how important it is to support domestic semiconductor manufacturing. I worked very hard to include it in the Build Back Better package. We're now going to have legislation come from the House and focus on it in the Senate as well. That's a special priority of mine. Second, the United States must also work with allies to ensure secure and reliable supply chains for critical supplies. And here we would be talking about steel and pharmaceutical ingredients. And finally, the government needs to crack down on trade cheating that undermines the ability of our workers to be able to compete fairly in tough markets. So, Ms. Lago, you are available online. If confirmed as Undersecretary of Trade, you're going to oversee much of the Department of Commerce's response to supply chain disruptions. Tell us how you're going to pull together analysis, enforcement, and compliance at the International Trade Office to address these extraordinary challenges we're facing with the supply chain.
Thank you so much, Chairman, for highlighting this issue, which is front of mind for so many. As you note, ITA has a number of tools in its toolkit that it can deploy to help address this issue. I'll note that while the U.S. has experienced supply chain disruptions in the past, periodically over the years, this one is different. COVID-19 shut down the global economy, and the supply chain disruptions that we're seeing are global in nature. We know that the supply chain is controlled by the private sector, so we need to work with them as they need to cooperate to get us through this. Turning specifically to ITA, you mentioned two of the tools that we have. The first is our industry and analysis team, which can perform extensive market analyses and can focus on strengthening the competitiveness of U.S. industries. Similarly, we know that there are players in the world that operate in anti-competitive ways, and ITA also has within it a well-respected, strong enforcement and compliance unit, which we, of course, if confirmed, I would stand ready to deploy in support of addressing the supply chain concerns.
Let me turn, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that, Ms. Lago?
No, thank you.
All right, let's turn to digital trade. It seems to me that we're at something of a fork in the road with respect to digital trade and innovation, and this has been one of my priorities since day one when I came to the United States Senate. And we've had a chance to sort of pursue a host of issues, whether it's Section 230, internet tax freedom, digital signatures. The list kind of goes on and on to try to nurture opportunities for high-skill, high-wage jobs, and at the same time promote the principles of openness and freedom on the internet. And It seems to me now we still try to bring countries together around those principles of openness and freedom on the internet, but there is another road that we have to deal with where antagonistic nations build walls around their digital economies that stifle innovation while trampling the online freedoms of their citizens. And as I indicated, Ms. Lago, this is an area where I've spent considerable amount of time both writing legislation and then with Senator Crapo and others trying to advance these ideas that promote openness and freedom on the internet here in this committee. So we need to have leadership at the office that provides the opportunity to have a critical economic engine for our country and also the greatest possible platform for the open exchange of ideas. If you're confirmed, Ms. Lago, how would you ensure that the International Trade Administration hits those twin kind of challenges, tackling censorship and authoritarian barriers to digital trade in a way that promotes democratic values and labor and human rights, while at the same time creating the opportunity of high-skill, high-wage jobs that digital trade promotes?
Thank you, Chairman. It would be hard to state the issue, the challenge, more eloquently than you did, while also highlighting the opportunity that is there in digital trade. I'm pleased to see that Ambassador Tai has spoken to the importance of this and that Secretary Raimondo, while in Asia Pacific, is hosting a forum on women in technology with a particular focus on the digital economy. If confirmed, I would so look forward to being able to work with you to tap into the expertise of you and your team and that of other members of Congress so that I would be able to take the tools within ITA's toolkit and deploy them across the interagency, because the issues that you have raised in digital trade will require the participation of numerous agencies in government. And I would so look forward to prioritizing this issue if I had the honor of being confirmed.
Very good. Senator Crapo.
Thank you, Senator Wyden. And first of all, I want to just mention to both of you that I strongly support Senator Wyden's reference to our efforts on semiconductors. We need badly to strengthen and promote our semiconductor industry in the United States. And I just wanted to make that note. Senator Wyden also asked my first question, basically, Ms. Lago, and I will just pursue it a little bit further with regard to digital trade. It's very critical, and in the context of the conversation you just had with Senator Wyden, a question I have for you is, I believe that the United States should negotiate digital trade agreements to assure that the United States, and not China, sets the rules in this critical area. I just returned from a congressional trip to Indochina, where we went to the Philippines, to Taiwan, and to India. And trade was critical in each of these discussions we had in those areas. Do you agree that the United States should pursue digital trade agreements with our allies?
Thank you, Ranking Member Crapo, for again highlighting the importance of digital trade as being so essential to our economy today and also the economy of the future. I think it is extremely important, as you know, to align ourselves with countries that share our commitment to democracy, to rule of law, and to work with them in partnership so that we end up with high standards, so that we do not cede this area to countries that engage in trade practices that are abhorrent to us. And so, if confirmed, I would so welcome being able to work with you, this committee, and the interagency to see how we can best work with our allies and partners globally to achieve these multiple goals that we have in the digital trade arena.
Thank you. Just one more quick question for you, because I do want to get on to Ms. Wong before I run out of my time. but a China-led trade agreement, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, will enter into force on January 1. China has also applied to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I am deeply concerned that China is seeking to supplant the United States when it comes to setting the rules for trade in the Indo-Pacific. Do you think the United States needs to re-examine TPP, including what improvements could be made? That's to Ms. Lago.
Thank you, Ranking Member Crapo, for that question. I do think it is extremely important that the U.S. be present in the Asia-Pacific and the Indo-Pacific region. I am pleased that as we are here in this hearing today, that Secretary Raimondo is in the region. I'm pleased that President Biden has announced an Asian economic dialogue. And that the Secretary, as part of her trip to the region, has noted that we need to develop an Indo-Pacific economic framework, one that is going to look to enhance the resilience, inclusion, and sustainability of our trading relationships, the interests of the middle class in our countries. And so I would look forward, if confirmed, to bringing the tools that ITA has to the table to make sure that we are engaged, committed partners with our allies in this ever so important region.
Well, thank you, and I hope that that engagement and that framework will involve focusing on bilateral and multilateral trade agreements with critical allies in the region. Ms. Wong, the Department of Commerce from time to time seeks to settle anti-dumping and countervailing duty cases by negotiating suspension agreements or other arrangements. These are international agreements that impose terms and conditions on trade and should be thus subject to congressional oversight. However, the Department of Commerce's engagement with this committee on such negotiations has often been spotty. Do you agree that the Department of Commerce must keep this committee apprised of efforts to resolve any anti-dumping or countervailing duty proceedings through an international agreement?
Senator Crapo, thank you for this question, and I certainly understand the importance of your role in oversight of enforcement and compliance matters. If confirmed, I would absolutely commit to maintaining open lines of communications with your offices on these matters.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I'm also about to run out of time. Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Senator Crapo. Senator Menendez is next, and I think he is on the web. All right, we have lots going on today, so we await our colleagues. And Senator Crapo, I have one additional question, and then should we still be waiting for? Oh, there we go. You are spared my additional question at this time, Ms. Wong. Senator Cassidy, when you get settled, we will recognize you for your time.
Hello, thank you both. Ms. Wang, I'm not sure how specific you can be on this. Hang on. I've been listening virtually, so now I'm... Got it. But there are domestic producers that are being harmed by unfair trade. I represent a state with a lot of fisheries, particularly shrimp. And there's been allegations of dumping from India in particular as regards the my folks. What can you do to help these producers obtain the relief they are entitled to under the law?
Senator Cassie, thank you so much for this question. And given my background as a trade remedy practitioner, this is an area I care very deeply about. Giving a voice to American workers and small, medium enterprises like fisheries and seafood to find a voice in trade. If confirmed, I would work to ensure that there's rigorous enforcement of the anti-dumping countervailing duty laws against all unfair trade practices. Thank you.
Now, the last administration promised to self-initiate more anti-dumping and countervailing duty cases, but only did so once. So I guess I'd like to have, I thank you for the pledge, but I think my folks would want to hear that there would be action upon that pledge, knowing that the previous administration only initiated one anti-dumping initiative. Any thoughts on that?
Senator, again, thank you for that question. Self-initiation of anti-dumping and countervailing duty proceedings is an important issue, particularly in helping small businesses find effective trade relief, and I take that seriously. I note that within the Office of Enforcement and Compliance, there already is a pre-petitioning unit and a self-initiation unit within Enforcement and Compliance. If confirmed, I would work with those units to find a way forward in helping these small businesses and American workers. Thank you.
I'm told that normally only the two largest foreign producers are reviewed. But I'm also told by stakeholders the department rarely uses its authority to sample and to get a more representative group of producers to examine. So year after year, the largest foreign producers are resampled, but there's a whole lot of folks beneath who are maybe exploiting the system and not being sampled. So what can you do about that?
Senator, thank you for that question. And I would note that the statute does not provide a preference on choosing the largest producers and exporters versus a sampling methodology based on statistically valid methodologies.
So you're suggesting that Congress needs to change the law. I'm looking at my chair and my ranking, so that it isn't just dictated to be the same two every year, but it be, as you said, a statistically representative sampling of all the producers sending in?
Senator, thank you for allowing me to have a little bit of follow-up to that. I would note that the workload of enforcement and compliance has increased dramatically in the past few years.
I would argue, though, that a statistically significant sampling would lower workload because you're not wasting time on people who know they're going to be inspected. You're actually, and so therefore you're wasting your time. You still get the complaints, you have to respond to the complaints, but you're stuck doing the two that know they're going to be busted if they are out of line. Otherwise, you have a more statistically. Again, I'm speaking to the chair and the ranking member, so I'm hoping from your lips go to their ear.
Senator Cassidy, I very much appreciate the question, and I would note that these are very fact-specific findings in proceedings, and it's not always the two largest exporters are chosen in these proceedings. Commerce has used sampling in previous proceedings, and I would note that if confirmed, I would be willing to discuss with you.
Now, let me ask him also, though, correct me, but I'm also under the impression that sampling has not been for, okay, if 10% of that which we sampled falls out of line, therefore we're going to extrapolate from that sample to the entire amount coming from this particular business. Rather, it has only been sent to reflect that particular amount for phytosanitary, for example. Is that correct? And if not, is that an accurate, statistically significant way to sample?
Senator, I am willing to discuss this further with you. If confirmed, I'm not unsure as to the particular question you've just raised about phytosanitary measures.
Okay, I yield back. Thank you.
Senator Cassidy, first of all, I think you raise a very important issue, this question of sampling of foreign products sent to the United States. The first question I think we're going to explore, and I look forward to working with the ranking member and my colleague from Louisiana, is does the office have existing authority to actually do some of what Senator Cassidy is talking about? And so we'll have to sort that out. And if they do, then we'll have to see why it may not be being used. And then possibly we should look at legal tools to do it. But I think my colleague makes a good point, and we'll follow it up.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, we're joined by Senator Menendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Wong, the President, as a candidate, promised that he would return the jurisdiction of the export licensing of semi-automatic weapons from the Commerce Department back to the Department of State, from which the Trump administration took it. Now, of course, the President can do this by simple regulation without the need for legislative approval, but until that happens, the Department is providing no information to Congress as to what lethal weapons, including sniper rifles and assault rifles, are being sold to what countries or foreign persons, and in what quantities and under what conditions. What's the status of the implementation, to your knowledge, of the President's promise to the American people?
Senator, thank you for this question. The mission of enforcement and compliance is to counter unfair trade practices. On the matters you speak, I know that other interagencies are working on it, and so I don't have the particular details to provide you on that.
Do you support the President's promise?
Senator, thank you for allowing me to have that follow-up. I know enough to know that there are very complex issues involved in this, and at this time, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to comment.
Okay, so I didn't ask you about the complex issues. The President made a promise. Do you support, you're a presidential nominee. Do you support the President's promise?
Senator, if confirmed, I would want to learn more about this issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Until the President's promise is implemented, will you commit to provide to the Committee of Jurisdiction over Arms Sales specific information about what semi-automatic weapon sales are being considered for export, including the foreign recipient, the numbers of weapons, conditions, and end-use monitoring measures, as well as the exports that have been approved?
Senator, again, thank you for this question. I would
Yeah,
have
please
to...
do me a favor. Don't thank me for the question anymore. That only takes time. Can you give me an answer, yes or no?
Senator, I do not know enough about this issue to provide a comment either
Well,
way.
you're going to have jurisdiction in part over this issue, so if you don't know much about it, that's a problem. Let me just say, I expect you're not the first nominee in this field that is unwilling to give an answer. Now, I've tried to be supportive of the President's nominees, but I will not be able to be supportive if I can't get a clear answer. So I hope that Commerce gets the message. Let me ask you this on a different matter. One of the main weaknesses of the Phase 1 deal with China was that it lacked any sort of enforcement measures to ensure China held up their end of the bargain. As a result, as of August, China has only met 62% of its purchase commitments under the Phase 1 deal. If confirmed, you would play a significant role in the enforcement of U.S. trade policy. Do you agree that without proper enforcement measures, any deal with China is likely to be less effective?
Senator, I would like to clarify that the mission of enforcement and compliance is to counter unfair trade practices such as anti-dumping and countervailing duty. The objective of enforcement and compliance is to find the existence and magnitude of dumping and subsidization. On the issues you speak of the Phase 1 deal, I know that other offices within Commerce and the interagency, including the U.S. Trade Representative, are working on that issue now. If confirmed, I would want to learn more about what role enforcement and compliance can have in that process. But I do want to make clear what the mission of enforcement
What do you think your job's going to be? Maybe you can edify me. What do you think your job's going to be if you're confirmed?
As I just, Senator, thank you. The primary responsibility of my position as Assistant Secretary is to ensure that the trade remedy statute, anti-dumping, countervailing duties, safeguards, suspension agreements are rigorously enforced.
And trade remedies require enforcement, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Well,
Senator.
part of my question is the enforcement of agreements that we have, including the enforcement of the agreements we have with China. If there is no enforcement, then it's insignificant as to what we agree to. Is that at least something you can agree to?
Senator, I also want to make clear here that the number of anti-dumping countervailing duty orders on China is significant. It counters the effective and targeted practices that China undertakes to undermine American businesses and U.S. workers. So in that matter, enforcement and compliance has rigorously and transparently enforced the U.S. AD/CVD laws.
Let me ask you one last question, see if you can convince me to vote for your nomination. Will you commit to ensuring that resolving the softwood lumber dispute with Canada continues to be a top priority?
Senator, I am recused from that matter because of my representation at my current place of employment.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, this has been very elucidating. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Menendez. Next will be Senator Thune on the web.
As the holiday season approaches, and I would say that ag producers in my state are also feeling the crunch with capacity for their goods being hampered by a combination of surging demand for containerized shipping and a massive backlog at our nation's ports, particularly LA Long Beach. This inefficiency has downstream effects on commodity prices, hurting farmers and ranchers across the country, including in South Dakota. If confirmed, could you describe what actions you would take to ensure that U.S. businesses, including exporters of agricultural products, can rely on efficient and stable processing at U.S. ports? And I hope it's more than what's currently being done, because what's currently being done seems to be doing very little to address what has become a crisis in our supply chain.
Thank you, Senator, for highlighting the importance of pulling together to address the supply chain crisis. We know that there are real impacts, as you noted, for farmers, for ranchers, but also for American consumers. And if confirmed, I would be proud to be part of the administration that is working with the private sector, which does control the supply chain, and use the tools that we have at our disposal. Again, if confirmed, I would look to be part of an interagency group that so far has effectively had the important ports extend their hours of operation, that has worked with the major shipping companies, with the major retailers. I think a key facet that, if confirmed, ITA could bring to the table is our industry and analysis team, which can help analyze supply chain vulnerabilities. And I would see that analysis as being part of an overall solution. But again, I believe it bears repeating that the supply chain is run by the private sector, and we need to continue to urge them to come together and cooperate on sharing information.
Thanks. And it is run by in many respects by the private sector. There are also port authorities, which are run by cities, et cetera, involved as well. But a lot of the things that can be done by the federal government, the levers that we can throw, have to do with lightening the regulatory requirements and allowing, for example, independent truckers to come in, which would entail taking on the Teamsters organization, and also lightening up on hours of service. Other things that can be done and should be done by the administration can be done here at the federal level in Washington. Those are levers and tools that can be used, and I hope that you would put pressure on the administration to do such things, because absent taking those sorts of actions, I think we're going to continue in this just swirl of people talking about it and focusing on it, but nothing actually being done to address it. Ms. Wong, in your written testimony, you state that American workers and American businesses should not be undercut by unfair trade practices. You also state that as foreign governments and foreign competitors become more sophisticated in their use of industrial subsidies and other unfair trade practices, we must work harder and smarter to counter these practices. Do you believe that China declaring itself as a developing country at the WTO undercuts American businesses and corrodes trust in the rules-based trading system?
Senator, thank you for that question. In terms of trade, China is a threat. They take aggressive anti-competitive measures against U.S. businesses and harm American workers, like flooding our markets with cheap steel and aluminum. If confirmed, I would use the full force of the AD/CVD laws to counter these distortive practices. Thank you.
I've got a bipartisan resolution to address China's developing country status at the WTO, and I would encourage the administration to take on this issue. Finally, Ms. Lago, you talk about the importance of our nation remaining a global leader on trade, especially as we look to the post-pandemic world. And as you know, Trade Promotion Authority expired in July and it needs to be renewed. The administration has not made TPA a priority and has not made any material progress on new trade deals such as the US-UK FTA or a digital services agreement with Asia-Pacific countries. In order to remain a global leader on trade, how important is it for the United States to proactively engage in new trade agreements? And what's going to happen if the U.S. sits on the sidelines? And tell me what you're going to do to get the administration to submit a new Trade Promotion Authority proposal for Congress to consider.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for highlighting the importance of the U.S. continuing to be a leader globally, but as you note, especially important in the Indo-Pacific region to counter the threats that Ms. Wong so eloquently, forcefully laid out. I do think that it is important to have the type of engagement in this region that the president called for in calling for an Asian economic dialogue. It's important to have and work on, if confirmed, on the Indo-Pacific economic framework that Secretary Raimondo announced yesterday. It is only by engaging with allies and partners in the region that we can most effectively assure that we have high quality, high standards for trade based on the rule of law.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would focus like a laser on that region, and I think it's important for us to have Trade Promotion Authority so we can get deals done quicker and more efficiently and make us competitive in the global marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Thune. I think Senator Carper is on the web.
He is on the web, and he's ready to join us.
Please proceed, Senator Carper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To our witnesses, I want to say to Ms. Wong, has your name ever been
next?
I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear that question. I apologize very much. Would you mind
Has
repeating?
your name ever been mispronounced, Ms. Wong?
Oh, yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, it's spelled Wang, but that would be the Wong way to pronounce it. So we'll call you Wong for today's purpose. Thank you for joining. And Ms. Lago, I understand your dad was a World War II veteran, Navy. Is that right?
Proudly Navy.
Yeah. My dad was World War II veteran Navy, and a bunch of my uncles were as well, including one who was killed in a kamikaze attack. So we bleed Navy blue in our family. But thank you for your dad's service. Well, years later, when I served as governor of Delaware, I was governor from 93 to 2001, but I was privileged to oversee a period of strong job creation and economic growth. I've been told that more jobs were created in those 8-year period in Delaware than any 8-year period in the history of the state of Delaware. And I would note duly that I did not create one of them, but we worked really hard in my administration with the legislature and the business community and others to create a nurturing environment for job creation and job preservation. And unfortunately, fast forward to the past administration, our international trade policy was characterized too often by chaos, by uncertainty, which is really the opposite of what we used to make investments. But my question for both of Ms. Lago, Ms. Wong, is if confirmed, both of you will be in positions tasked and with implementing and enforcing our trade policies. How will you help foster greater certainty, greater predictability in our international trade system for the benefit of American businesses and workers? Ms. Lago, you go first, please.
Thank you, Senator. At the heart of this is engagement and communication. Engagement with our allies and partners, and open communication. Communication with the various stakeholders. We know that we have a wide variety of stakeholders, some with differing perspectives, but the important thing is to hear from, from our industries, to hear from our businesses, our farmers, our ranchers, to hear from our workers, and to hear from Congress. And so I can't overemphasize the importance of keeping open lines of communication. The second thing that I would emphasize is the importance of working in the interagency. We know that trade is a multifaceted arena, and there are other agencies within the US government that are an important part of the trade equation.
Yeah, that's a great point. Miss Wong, no, Miss Miss Wong. Next, same question, please.
Thank you, Senator. Accountability is the answer here. Trade remedies ensure that countries are held accountable for their unfair trade practices, and the AD/CVD process gives the American workers a voice in trade and to ensure that the unfair trade practices that harm them are being properly addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. A second question. This would be for Miss Lago, I think. Miss Lago, I'm impressed. I think my colleagues are as well with respect to your depth of experience in public service. One of the most valuable skills in I think in almost any management role is the ability to bring different stakeholders, and you've alluded to this, but different stakeholders to the table and find common ground. If confirmed, one of your responsibilities would include collaborating with some of the other agencies whose responsibilities include trade. But for the purposes of strengthening American competitiveness, and here's my question. Could you just share some insights into your approach to collaborative leadership and how your previous success finding common ground would shape your service confirmed for this position?
Thank you for that question, Senator. You are so right that in confronting any complex issue, as many tools as ITA has at its disposal, it will not be nearly as effective if it does not reach out. And that outreach has to be across the Department of Commerce and across the interagency. This is something that is so familiar to me from my role at Treasury, the 7 years that I spent as Assistant Secretary for International Markets and Development. As important as collaboration is when operating domestically, I think it may be even more important internationally because we need to be Team USA with respect to the rest of the world. And I'd like to highlight one other facet of collaboration, and that is working with the expert career staff at the Department of Commerce. There is so much expertise lodged there, and if confirmed, I would so look forward to learning from them, working with them, and then collaborating in the way that I just described.
Great comments. Thank you both for your willingness to serve. Thank you for your testimony here today. Good luck.
Thank you, Senator Carper. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning to both of you. My first question is for Ms. Lago, and it has to do with the carbon efficiency advantage that the U.S. enjoys over China. I'm looking at a table here based on data from the International Energy Agency, which shows the carbon efficiency advantage index between the U.S. and China at 3.2 in our favor. With a carbon advantage like that, Ms. Lago, what would you expect if we were able to deploy a border adjustment for carbon emissions with China? Presumably, that would confer pretty significant advantage on American trade, exports, and manufacturing, if in fact we are about a third as carbon intense as China.
Thank you, Senator, for raising an issue that touches upon a number of different facets. One is highlighting the fact that among China's anti-competitive and trade distorting practices are the fact that many of its industries operate not in accordance with the environmental standards that our country prides itself on. Second, in highlighting our carbon advantage, it suggests that there are opportunities for U.S. businesses to take advantage of the technological edge that we have here to create new markets and thus new jobs for Americans. With respect to the border adjustment tax, were I to have the honor of being confirmed, I would look forward to learning from you and your staff and from the experts at the Commerce Department more about this so that I could then have an informed discussion with you.
But as a basic proposition, if China is now getting away with essentially free pollution at a ratio of 3 to 1 compared to American competitors, that gives them an unfair advantage against their American competitors, does it not?
Thank you, Senator. The importance of holding China to its international obligations can't be overstated. And again, if confirmed, I would look forward to learning more about this border adjustment.
So last question to Ms. Wong and also to Ms. Lago, if there's time. Pirate fishing, illegal fishing, IUU fishing, it's often called, amounts to about a third of the fish taken out of the ocean. It's a pretty big deal. China is very involved in predatory fishing practices, outraging many neighboring countries with their practices in their sovereign waters. The result is intense damage to our oceans, a common resource for the world, and also intense damage to U.S. fishing interests, which have to compete against these unfair, cheating pirates. And yet, that doesn't seem to get much attention in our trade conversations. Can you express to me what your level of interest and engagement will be to suppress IUU fishing if you're confirmed to your positions? First, Ms. Wong.
Senator, thank you for the question. The issue of pirate fishing, including its use of forced labor in that, is an important issue, and one that I would note that Commerce's Enforcement and Compliance Office of Policy and Negotiations has been working with the interagency, including U.S. Trade Representative, on the fishery negotiations. And if confirmed, I would look forward to learning more about this with the interagency and seeing what ENC's role can be in it. Thank you.
Ms. Lago, you have 30
I would echo
seconds.
Ms. Wong. Thank you, Senator. I would echo Ms. Wong's comments and would also note that if confirmed, I would also look to Commerce's Industry and Analysis Unit, ITA's Industry and Analysis Unit, to see how their skills, their tools can be deployed to address this issue.
Thanks. To anybody listening, your Sherpas and all, I would suggest that we need to do a much better job at getting ahead of this, and that those of us who are from coastal states that have fishing communities are getting increasingly fed up with the low priority that pirate fishing receives from administration after administration. Thank you.
And I'm going to recognize Senator Cortez Masto, but I just want to say, if anything, Senator Whitehouse is being far too diplomatic. The stall ball that has been played for years and years on this fishing issue as China pillages our fisheries and damages coastal communities is unconscionable, it's inexcusable, and I will be watching very closely the activities that are coming up in terms of the negotiations, and if progress is not made, we are going to pursue legislation to up the ante and ensure that we finally end the absurd practice of just sort of standing around and letting China pillage our fisheries. So I thank my colleague from Rhode Island for raising it. And,
thank you, Chairman.
He has been more diplomatic than I'm prepared to be after all of these years of going around the mulberry bush and nothing happening. My friend from Nevada has been kind enough to say with her questions she'll wrap up and handle the questions for the record. And she's a very valued member of the committee and just so appreciate her help.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the nominees, congratulations. Welcome today. Let me start with something that is obviously we're all hearing about and is a concern. I know the administration is working on implementing solutions, but the delay at our ports It's a complex issue with many contributing factors that continues to frustrate consumers and businesses in my home state. So to Ms. Wong and Ms. Lago, if confirmed to your respective new roles at Commerce, how would you, if any, be able to provide immediate relief or work on this issue as it pertains to the delays at the ports? And Ms. Wong, let me start with you.
Senator, thank you for that question. If the pandemic has shown us anything, it is the importance of the domestic supply chain resiliency. And the role of enforcement and compliance is to counter unfair trade practices that undermine this growth and this resiliency. So if confirmed, I would work to ensure that any unfair trade practices that undermine resiliency in U.S. job growth by unfair trade practices are countered rigorously by the AD/CVD laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lago.
Thank you, Senator. This is a global issue, and so if confirmed, I would look forward to working with allies and partners who are also experiencing these types of disruptions which affect our citizens. Part of the solution is investing in American infrastructure and workers. And so passage of the infrastructure bill is part of a longer term solution. We also need companies, the private sector, which controls the supply chain, to provide more transparency about where the bottlenecks are, how long they believe it will take to address them. If confirmed, I would look forward to deploying ITA's tools, the enforcement and compliance tools that Ms. Wong has just spoken to, but also ITA's industry and analysis team, which can help analyze supply chain vulnerabilities.
Thank you. I so appreciate your comments to this important issue. And that's one of the reasons why I joined Senators Baldwin, Brown, Rosen, and others in the introduction of the Supply Chain Resiliency Act. And this will help to alleviate our current supply chain bottlenecks and prevent future disruptions by investing in American companies, reducing our reliance on foreign supply chains, and ensuring that critical products are made in America. And I'm hopeful that the Commerce Department will be supportive of this legislation. Ms. Wong, let me go back to you. As Assistant Secretary of Commerce, you will be responsible for the enforcement and compliance of trade laws. And I noticed in your background, you have extensive knowledge of U.S. anti-dumping and countervailing duty laws. How will you ensure compliance with trade laws when goods are imported and exported? And can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on that and based on your experience as well?
Senator, thank you for that question and allowing me to speak to my experience. As a trade practitioner, I know that the importance of having the American worker, American businesses, including small and medium-sized enterprises, having a voice in that process is important to making sure that unfair trade practices are being properly addressed by the AD/CVD laws. I think part of, if confirmed, I would work to ensure that we are using all the tools in our trade remedy toolbox to go after unfair trade practices, to make sure that the resiliency of U.S. businesses and American workers are not being hurt by these practices. And so I just look forward to getting started, if confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Ms. Lago, you spent 7 years at Treasury as Assistant Secretary for International Markets and Development. Again, it's extensive experience that will benefit you if confirmed to this position. Can you share how that experience informs your perspective and prepares you to serve as the Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade?
Thank you for the question, Senator. My time at Treasury exposed me to the international economic architecture. It exposed me to my counterparts, which included not just other finance ministries, but also trade and industry ministries. And it showed me the importance of working across U.S. government, of working with members of Congress, and then also of working with allies and partners globally, both bilaterally and multilaterally. And if confirmed, I would look forward to bringing that experience with me to ITA.
Thank you. Thank you both again. Congratulations, and appreciate you being here as well. And I understand we have Senator Langford is on joining us by the web. Senator.
We do. Thank you. Thanks for that as well, for the quick introduction on it. Ms. Lago, I want to be able to identify these questions for you specifically on this. If confirmed, you'll be handling the non-market economies list. Obviously, that's exceptionally important to us in our competitiveness. I've pushed to be able to have Russia considered to be able to be on that non-market economies list, and I'd be interested to be able to get your feedback on that or your willingness to be able to at least study that issue.
Thank you, Senator, for raising the issue of Russia's NME, non-market economy status. NME is an important distinction for purposes of anti-dumping duties and how they are calculated, as you know, Senator. It is a highly fact-specific and technical determination that is based on multiple factors that are laid out. If confirmed, I would look forward to working with Commerce's expert career staff to look at the factors that are there, and anytime that the issue of NME comes up, to look at the factors and also, given your interest, Senator, to seek your input on this.
Okay, we'd look forward to that dialogue. As you know, Belarus had asked to be taken off of that non-market economies list in the past. The Trump administration had said no to that. About 70% of their economy is state-operated. And with currently Lukashenko from Belarus and Putin, their cooperation tends to be accelerating that issue of non-market economies. Would you maintain Belarus as a non-market economy at this point?
Senator.
That's for Ms. Lago.
Thank you, Senator. If confirmed, I would commit to looking into the issue. At this point, not being within the Commerce Department, I don't have access to information other than what we see publicly of the distressing situation with Belarus.
Okay, we'll follow up on that in the days ahead. One of the areas you've dealt with in the past is the CFIUS review. One of the proposals that I've had is for a mandatory CFIUS review on areas like agricultural investment, technology investment, and others for entities that are coming out of a non-market economy. We've seen as recently as just stories in the past 48 hours on China purchasing companies in Italy, for instance, and to be able to pick up. It was a Chinese company, but as they traced it back, though they were purchasing technology in Italy, they found out pretty quickly it was actually a Chinese government-owned entity, it's a state-owned government, in the communist China is going to be very, very common, actually. So my question is, for non-market economies, would you support a mandatory review for entities within a non-market economy purchasing into the United States for agriculture, technology, other areas?
Thank you for raising the importance of CFIUS as a national security tool. And I followed with interest Congress's adoption of FIRMA, which I think made very beneficial changes to the authorities that CFIUS has been given. One of the important tools within FIRMA was the focus on working with allies on their inbound investment review. I think for many of the reasons that your example brings to the fore. And so certainly, if confirmed, I would welcome learning more about your legislation.
Okay, let's talk about that in the future then and continue to be able to maintain that, because a mandatory review, a CFIUS review for these non-market economies, I think would be very important for a lot of the investment that's happening now from so-called private companies that are clearly not their state-owned companies. And that initial piece of that, I think, will be important. One last piece on this, and that is the issue about human rights abuses. I authored an amendment that came to this committee. It was actually voted down by every Democrat in the committee on trying to exclude Uyghur-developed solar power or solar panels and such that were coming because of the human rights abuses for the Uyghurs at this point. Interestingly enough, just a couple of weeks ago in the Build Back Better bill in the House, they actually took out the section that would prevent Uyghur forced labor products from coming into the United States. And then John Kerry, just last week, made a statement that keeping out Uyghur-done solar panels and all that happens there is not in his lane. I'm trying to figure out whose lane it's in and what your role would be, Ms. Lago, on trying to prevent products that coming into the United States that are done with forced labor.
Senator, like you, I abhor the forced labor, the human rights abuses that the Chinese government is inflicting, particularly on the Uyghurs. And if confirmed, I would look forward to working with you, with this committee, and also with the interagency on this topic of forced labor. It is a topic that requires many different government agencies to pull together. But I want to start from be as clear as possible that China's treatment of the Uyghurs is unacceptable.
And you would say that's in your lane to help prevent that coming in the United States?
If confirmed, I would welcome being part of the solution to the issue of forced labor in China.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Langford. Senator Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Cortez Masto. Congratulations to both of you in your nominations. For the first time in memory, and I include administrations of both parties, we finally have an administration that puts workers at the center of our trade policy. I was very unhappy with the Trump trade policy. It sounded good, but it was more corporate trade agreements until we fixed USMCA. And I thank Senator Cortez Masto for her work on that, and particularly Chairman Wyden on his work. But the administration, the Biden administration, the Obama administration was essentially wrong on trade. And later today, Ms. Lago, and we were having an individual one-on-one conversation. I will ask you some more pointed questions in that discussion. I'm seeing important progress on the trade agreement negotiation front, but we need more aggressive changes in enforcement. I'm very comfortable with U.S. Trade Rep Tai and the administration she's putting together, in large part because of her history of putting workers at the center of our trade policy and our economic policy. I'm less comfortable with commerce and want to hear more from both of you, especially when we talk later, Ms. Lago, of Obama administration policy and how that may color the Commerce Department. So I hear from businesses across Ohio encountering issues with dumping of Chinese-sourced products into the U.S. market. We know that China's historically used every tool at its disposal to get around our trade laws. I agree, certainly, with my Oklahoma colleague about his comments about the Uyghurs, but I also hear those comments from senators that have essentially kowtowed to China and have given American corporations what they wanted in our trade policy with China. Now we focus on human rights as we should, but we also have to focus on enforcement. I introduced my bipartisan bill with my Ohio colleague and with Senators Rubio and Casey, Level the Playing Field 2.0, to update our trade remedy laws for better enforcement. China has a playbook. We know they build up their overcapacity in a specific product. They target American businesses for illegal dumping. They've done this for steel and iron. They make it so that small businesses can't compete. They're doing it now in the solar sector. We have the biggest solar manufacturer in the country near Toledo. I know what they're up against, and they're about to do this. The Chinese are for materials that are sensitive for our national security. So, Ms. Wang, I'd like to thank you for being here, and Ms. Lago, thank you for doing this remotely. Ms. Wang, I have a series of yes or no questions for you on the tools that we have to address illegal dumping and AD/CVD circumvention. So just a series of questions. Do you believe a union company in Lima, Ohio should have to lay off hundreds of workers before our government can respond to the dumping activity harming our manufacturing industry?
Senator Brown, thank you for the question. I want to assure you that the voices of union members and American workers are absolutely heard in the AD/CVD process.
Okay. But my question, though, thank you for that. Glad to hear that. Do you believe a union company in Lima should have to lay off hundreds of workers before government can respond to the dumping activity?
Senator, I do not believe that there should be layoffs of American workers due to unfair trade practices of countries like China.
Do you believe a company in Youngstown that has already demonstrated financial harm from illegal dumping should have to wait 14 months for 14 months for duties to be applied against the product that's harming their companies?
Senator Brown, there are statutory deadlines and requirements that are necessary of enforcement and compliance, but if confirmed, I certainly would work to find efficiencies in that process.
Okay, the harm had already been shown. Okay. Do you believe a small business in my hometown of Mansfield should have to spend $3 million minimum to bring one of these issues before the ITC and the Department of Commerce?
Senator, I believe strongly that we should find ways to reach out to American workers, small, medium-sized enterprises, so that they can obtain the effective relief under the AD/CVD laws.
In a case where duties are finally applied, but that same product starts appearing from a completely different country, understanding what's probably happening, do you believe a company in Defiance, Ohio should have to restart the entire process with a brand new petition?
Senator Brown, there are remedies under the anti-circumvention laws that do not require industries to file a new AD/CVD petition. If confirmed, I would like to work on those issues with you.
Do you believe, last question, do you believe a company in Springfield, Ohio developing sensitive national security products that already discloses itself to the Department of Commerce should have to disclose itself to the public and face retaliation from China during the petition process?
Senator, I believe that these are highly fact-specific questions, particularly those involving business proprietary information. And if confirmed, I would want to learn more about that particular fact-specific proceeding.
I thought your answers were thoughtful. They weren't exactly yes or no. I understand why, but once you are confirmed, I assume you will. I vote for almost every Biden nominee. I am more, if not reluctant, certainly skeptical on trade issues because I've seen over the course of Democratic and Republican presidents a bias towards U.S. corporate interests that shut down production in this country and move overseas and sell their products back into this country. And as the president of the Federal Reserve in Richmond once told me, watch what I do and let me know you're watching. So thank you for your willingness to serve, both of you. And Ms. Wang, sorry you show up in person. You get more questions, but Ms. Lago remotely comes to my office later today. So thank you both.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Okay, we are going to wrap up the hearing. I'd like to thank all the members today for their participation. I'd especially like to thank both nominees for their responses this morning. Regarding questions for the record, the deadline for members to submit QFRs will be next Tuesday, November 23rd.